Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called Princess's Dangerous Brothers. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! This story begins with our young heroine, a cute white-haired girl, being dragged through dark streets in the middle of a snowy night. It so happens that her uncle, who had been taking care of her, is indebted to some rough criminals who are now beating him up in front of his niece, demanding their money. As he can't pay them back, one of the criminals threatens to cut off one of his fingers for each new day he's late on his payment. The girl steps in, trying to defend him, but the slimy leech offers her to them instead of the money. He tells them that they should take her, as she's worth more than what he owes due to her pretty face. Of course, the poor girl is terrified, begging him not to give her away and telling him she'll work harder to earn money. But the son of a bitch doesn't care and just pushes her to them. The men start dragging her away, but she's a fighter. She bites one of their hands to release its grip, but the man, angered, pushes her onto the ground, injuring her ankle. Now unable to run away, the man she bit approaches her, wanting to hit her in retaliation. Luckily, a young and handsome magician appears, driving the criminals away from her by using his fire magic. Another handsome man also pops in, introducing himself and the other boy as her brothers. Lestia, the little girl, is quite confused at their sudden appearance in her life, as the only thing she knows about her parents was that her mother had been a prostitute who already died. She tells Joel and Lysian, the boys who claim to be her brothers, that they must be wrong, and Joel insists, telling her she's the younger sibling of the family, even calling her by her name. It also appears that Joel has the magical ability to control the wind, which he uses to dry off Lestia's clothes. Joel wants to embrace her, but he notices she flinches at his touch because her body is covered in bruises. Infuriated, Joel and Lysian question her on who did this to her, but she doesn't want to say anything. So Joel collects himself and accepts this, telling her they should go home to heal her now. That's when her good-for-nothing uncle appears, forcefully grabbing Lestia by her tiny wrist and telling the boys they can't take her as she's his niece. As if he cares about her, that prick. The boys ask him if he's her uncle, why she was being mistreated by the criminals in front of his house, and he tells him they were disciplining her because she's been naughty, fueling their fury towards him. Calmly, Joel takes charge of the situation by asking him what he'd done with the 1,000 gold coins of child support their father had given him 10 years ago to take care of her. But the drunk tells him 1,000 coins was not enough to raise her. Swiftly, Joel takes out another 1,000 gold coins and gives them to him, telling him not to ever come near Lestia again. He obviously accepts them. Now, they both ask her if she'll come with them, and she accepts. As they are leaving, the uncle interrupts them once more, asking who Lestia's father is to be so rich as to give him so much gold. With a cold, authoritative look, they tell him she's the daughter of the Duke of Verchester, surprising both Lestia and her uncle. It seems the Verchester is a clan so powerful everyone, regardless of their statutes, knows their name. They are a clan of magicians with powers passed on from generation to generation, so Lysian gives the uncle one last warning to stay away from her with his magic fire. While in the carriage heading to their mansion, Lestia is worried they'll hate her if she dirties the seat with her dirty dress. Poor child. She's clearly been through so much. Joel asks her what's wrong, and she marvels at how sweet they are to her, but also wonders why they didn't look for her before. Lysian gives her a newspaper article about their family to read, trying to give her context on why they came only now. However, Lestia breaks down crying because she's unable to read the words, apologizing to them and calling herself stupid. Immediately, Lysian tries to go off the carriage to fight her uncle for having abused her so much, but Joel stops him. Then, Joel tries calming her down, telling her it's not her fault, and explaining that they came to her now because they just found out about her existence, as their father, the former head of the family, recently passed. Now their older brother Gerard is going to inherit the dukedom. They arrive at the Verchester mansion, where Lestia and her brothers are welcomed by the head butler, Haylok. He doesn't show the friendliest attitude at first, questioning Lestia about her possession of magical abilities, and telling her that if she has Verchester blood, then she must be magical as well. Lestia is taken aback, as she's never been able to cast magic of any sort, even telling them that maybe she's not a Verchester after all. Lysian cuts her off, telling her that no matter if she can cast magic or not, she'll always be a Verchester. Joel then shows her a magic rock bracelet he's wearing, telling her that he needs to have it on to control his magical powers, or else he could die from them. Hence, Joel sweetly tells her that not having magical powers is actually best, throwing Halok a dirty look, after which Halok apologizes for his rudeness to Lestia. Joel then places Lestia in Lysian's arms, telling him to take good care of her while he goes looking for her third runaway brother. Lysian's a bit shocked, but awkwardly and lovingly takes her in. A maid named Dora then introduces herself to Lestia, telling her she'll be serving her from now on. Dora asks Lysian if he'll take her to the bathroom, causing him to turn red while explaining that he's carrying her because she sprained her ankle and hastily depositing her inside the bathroom. Once in the bathroom, Dora is shocked when she sees poor Lestia's beaten-up body as she helps her undress for the bath. Lestia covers herself again, remembering the words of her heinous uncle, telling her to say the bruises were caused by her falling if anyone asked. Hesitant, she tells Dora that she fell, but Dora quickly reassures her by telling her that she doesn't need to explain anything to her. Dora's extremely sweet, noticing Lestia likes flowers and giving her some scented soap to smell, all while encouraging her to express her desires and likes freely. Lestia enters the dining room, where Lysian is waiting for her. He's instantly bewitched by her cuteness, remembering the time he first found out about her existence from their older brother after their father's funeral. According to Gerard, their father gave her away after finding out she's been born without magical abilities. And so now Gerard, being the new head of the family, feels responsible for her and ordered Joel, the second son, to go look for her. The third son, Martius, disappeared right after the funeral, finally free from his father's commands. And that's who Joel went looking for now. Lysian helps Lestia out with her food, as she can't understand anything about the dining etiquette and what utensils to use for what. He has a snarky attitude, but it's obvious he's full of love for her, telling her he'll always forgive her no matter what mistake she makes, reassuring her as she always looks scared to make the wrong move. Lestia is still convinced she's not a real Verchester, so she wonders if he'll forgive her for even that. In any case, Lysian is kindly cutting up the food for Lestia as she still doesn't know how to use the cutlery, excited to see her try all the new food laid before her. Once Lestia is full, he picks her up again and carries her to her new bedroom, even though she insists she can now walk on her own. There, Dora wishes her a good night's sleep and tells her to pull the rope next to the bed if she needs anything from her during the night, leaving Lestia and Lysian alone. Lysian asks her why she looks so hesitant, and Lestia asks him if she can use the bed. He tells her of course, and then asks her where she'd been sleeping before, and to his horror, she'd been sleeping on a haystack while her uncle slept on the bed. Lysian picks her up again and places her on the bed, telling her that if not, she wouldn't have gotten on it on her own accord. He asks her if she hates her uncle, and she appears to have mixed feelings about it. She concludes that she doesn't, as up until she was 5, before he started drinking, he treated her well. She's now 11 and wishes he quits drinking and lives a happy life. She's honestly so wholesome. Then, as she's afraid of the dark, Lysian creates magical light butterflies that fly around her room, illuminating it for the night. The staff seems to be very busy still with the aftermath of the Duke's funeral, and as they are working, they are gossiping about Lestia and if she really is the daughter of the late Duke. Dora hears them and quickly jumps in her defense, sternly ratifying Lestia's belonging in the Verchester family and sending everyone off to work. In the meantime, the kitchen staff seem to be very dedicated to preparing food Lestia will like. They honestly seem so sweet. Lestia finally wakes up and starts looking around her room, marveled that all that's there is for her to use. Dora comes in, reminding her to use the rope next to her bed if she needs her, and asking her as she woke up before she showed up. She brings her the breakfast the kitchen staff prepared for her so diligently, and Lestia is deeply enjoying her meal. She feels really grateful for everyone taking care of her, and being the sweet angel she is, she wants to show them her gratitude in some way. Thus, after breakfast and getting ready, Lysian is surprised to see Lestia outside the mansion with a basket of flowers and surrounded by staff, asking her what she's doing. Lysian takes a flower from Lestia, asking her what they're for. She apologizes, telling him they're paper flowers she made to show her gratitude towards everyone who's helping her. But Lysian seems bothered by her wanting to show gratitude, telling her that someone in her position doesn't need to do that. Dora interjects, taking the blame for not having stopped Lestia before, but Lestia defends her, reminding Lysian that he told her the night before that she could do whatever she wanted, and that it had been her decision to give out the flowers. She even tries taking the flowers he's holding from his hand, telling him she wanted to give it to him, but if he dislikes it, she'll just throw it away. Lysian quickly takes it back, blushing, wanting to keep it. Lestia then asks him what he's doing there, as he's supposed to be very busy, but he doesn't even know either. Dora then suggests they have tea together, and Lysian agrees, clearly unable to say no to Lestia. Lysian accompanies Lestia to the mansion's study room, where they'll have their tea, and she goes off to explore it while they wait for it to be ready. Lestia finds a book that's glowing, and she opens it. Surprising herself, she's able to read the words written on it, but they're in a different language. Immediately after she starts, the earth starts to shake, making everyone in the mansion think Martius, the third son and bearer of earth magic, had returned. Fearing Lestia might be afraid, Lysian goes to look for her and is surprised to see her reading that book, making her the interpreter. Lysian closes the book Lestia is reading, asking her how she's able to read that ancient book. Apparently, an interpreter is someone who can read the relics of ancient magic, as magic was born out of an ancient civilization that suddenly disappeared from unknown causes. After that, magic was only able to be passed down from blood, making lineage wizards, or, through words and spells, making magic researchers who can help ordinary people do magic through spells. Because of this, the interpretation of ancient books, which is extremely difficult, was only passed down through the imperial family of the Morcatium Empire, even though it is rumored that interpreters are naturally born with that ability. Lysian is now wondering whether the former Duke or his brother Gerard knows Lestia as an interpreter, knowing it would bring dire consequences if this fact became known to the outside world. They go to have tea, and Lestia asks Lysian if he's mad that she's read the book. He tells her not at all, but he also wants to teach her to read normal books as well as to write. So he offers to give her lessons every day, which she enthusiastically accepts. In the Imperial Palace, Gerard is attending a ball in his honor for having taken the dukedom. He's met by the Crown Prince Erichin, whom he knows from the Imperial Academy, and who seems to hold a huge grudge towards Gerard for always outperforming him. As they talk, Erichin asks Gerard about his siblings, finally mentioning Lestia, and shocking Gerard as he didn't know the Imperial family knew of her existence. Now, he's worried they might even know she's an interpreter. Gerard collects himself while Erichin tells him he wants to meet little Lestia, saying she must be beautiful like the other Verchesters. What a creep. He then goes on to talk about how the late Duke left many children as his legacy, telling Gerard that he must do the same in the name of loyalty to his kingdom, as the more witches there are, the better chances they have of winning the war. Gerard really resents Erichin, who's treating him like an animal, but then remembers a conversation he had with his father regarding the imperial family. He had told him they had to be loyal to them no matter the cost, as some of his siblings need magic stones to keep their powers at bay, and the imperial family is the only one who can procure them. Therefore, Gerard once again collects himself and replies to Erichin with a sly look in his eyes. After the ball, the prince seems to be having a temper tantrum in his room, upset by the look Gerard gave him. Still out of it, he's thinking of going to see Lestia soon, as him mentioning her had made Gerard visibly unsettled. In the Verchester mansion, it seems Lestia's already won everyone over, even grumpy old Hayloke. She's been making a tremendous effort to fit in, even asking the chef to show her how to use the cutlery. And Lysian worries that she might be overexerting herself. After he finishes his swordmanship practice, Lestia comes looking for Lysian, as she's been doing every day since he offered to teach her to read and write for their daily lesson. She's improving rapidly, and she's happy to notice that Lysian kept the paper flower she'd made him as a bookmark. They are so wholesome. The ground's shaking once more, and this time, it's really because Marty has finally returned. He storms into the study, looking for Lestia, but calling her Letty, telling her he's the cooler brother. In the meantime, Joel is bringing up a present he got for Lestia, showing her a huge pink rabbit doll which made him think of her. She's hesitant to take it, still unsure whether she's allowed such things, but Joel makes her laugh by joking that Lysian wouldn't appreciate the doll for himself, making her accept it. Lestia then asks Martius why he's calling her Liddy, and he tells her it's his nickname for her and proceeds to pick her up and spin her around in the air. At first, Lestia is having fun, but she quickly gets dizzy, asking Martius to put her down, but he won't budge until she calls him brother. Of course, she calls him that for the sake of being let go, but she feels bad for having called him brother before Joel, who'd asked her in the carriage while going to the Verchester estate for the first time. She immediately turns around and thanks Joel for the gift, calling him brother and making him become elated. Lysian quickly tells her she doesn't need to call him brother, but that she can just call him Lysian without any title adhered to that. Then, Lysian stands up and asks Joel to talk with him in private, telling him he has an important issue to talk about. Mardius tells Lestia he wants to play with her and that he'll play anything she wants. However, due to her harsh upbringing, aka her heinous uncle, she never played in her life and doesn't even know where to start. Realizing this, Mardius asks her what she's been doing in the mansion since she arrived, and she excitedly tells him Lysian's been teaching her how to read and write, also mentioning she's read a book and she's been walking around the mansion, but has never left it. Mardius is utterly dissatisfied with her response, telling her that he'll show her how to really enjoy life unlike her other brother, describing Gerard as a perfectionist, Joel as a good student, and Lysian as uninteresting. In the meantime, Lysian tells Joel that Lestia is an interpreter. He's surprised to hear that, thinking Gerard would have known if she's an interpreter. He remembers his childhood and how unhappy he was because his mother was often sick and left them to be raised by a nanny in the estate while she went south to the warmer climate to recuperate alone. He also barely saw his father as he was always busy, so the brothers only ever had each other. He also remembers how Lestia was born the same year his mother had died, but even though he felt bad for his mother as she barely received any attention from the Duke, her husband, he didn't blame Lestia, who he immediately noticed had had a harsh upbringing when he went looking for her. Back to the present, Joel tells Lysian that doesn't mean she's not their sister, so they should not probe that further until Gerard returns. Lysian and Joel then return to the study to find it empty. Mardius has taken Lestia out on a road trip, and they are in a carriage heading towards the nearest village. Mardius suggests they take a shortcut there, and then proceeds to use his magic to make the carriage go over a cliff, then lifting up ground for it to safely land and head right into the busy street of the village. Once there, Lestia looks worried for her brother, and she asks him if he's okay, as he used a lot of magic for the shortcut, and she'd heard that it was very dangerous to use magic. Mardius seems intrigued by her worry, as it's the first time any Verchester had expressed that for him. He reassures her that it's no problem for him to use magic, but I honestly don't buy this overly loving brother act, as we see the moment Joel came for him, telling him his sister was in the mansion, he seemed to think of her only as a new toy for him to play with. In any case, Lestia is excited as she's now able to read some of the signs of the shops around them, and Mardius hurries her into an accessory shop so she can buy things for herself. He starts picking out a lot of expensive things he wants to gift to her, but she asks him to please not get those expensive things for her. Her wishes almost come true, as Mardius didn't have money on him to buy them for her. But to her dismay, he gives the salesman one of his earrings and tells him to keep it as a guarantee he'll bring the money to him. After giving the salesman one of the magic gems he wears to contain his magic as insurance for the money, Mardius takes off with a worried Lestia to go earn the money. Obviously, being Mardius, he instantly thinks of going to get the money by playing games in a casino, taking Lestia along for the ride. He is doing quite well, multiplying his money by a lot and thanking Lestia, saying she's lucky. However, she looks extremely uncomfortable there, as she's worried he might lose everything in a hand and blame her for it. He tries to ease her on by telling her to play the next game, but she refuses, telling him she'd rather just watch him. With a lot of money now, Lestia asks Mardius if it wouldn't be wise to leave now without risking losing it all in another game, but he insists they play a last game of dice. Lestia is really nervous, and things get worse for her when Mardius tells her to throw the dice herself, knowing the only way they could win was if she got double sixes. Luckily for all, Lestia's dice gets the winning hand, and thus her anxiousness is relieved, feeling gleeful for having won and seeing Mardius so happy. Mardius then leaves her on a bar table alone while he goes to change the casino chips into money. Mardius is gleefully going back to the bar he left Lestia at while carrying a heavy bag of gold coins, excited to show them to her. However, as he approaches it, he notices Lestia is not where he'd left her, and so he immediately drops everything and starts looking for her. On the other hand, we see Lestia gagged and with her hands tied behind her back while being kidnapped by two strangers who seem to know who she is. They place her on the back of a carriage that's also carrying exotic birds, hiding her behind their cages. Of course, Lestia is crying, afraid of where they're taking her and what they'll do to her. However, she decides not to give in so easily and sees a nail on the carriage's wall, which she tries to use to cut herself free, but sadly, she fails in doing so. Right about then, her brothers stop the carriage she's in, demanding the drivers to let them take a look inside. It seems that right when Martius started looking for her in the casino, Joel and Lysian also arrived looking for the both of them. Upon realizing what was going on, Joel immediately sent out Verchester guards to look for Lestia, who discovered that the carriage had been the only one near the casino at the time of her disappearance. The men refused to let them take a look, telling them they are birds going to the Imperial Palace, and impeding their path could be considered treason. Lestia also couldn't call for them, as she's gagged and the birds are too loud. However, just as the carriage is starting again, she's able to use the nail to cut her gag off and calls out for her brothers. The moment the brothers hear Lestia's voice calling for them, all hell breaks loose. Martius uses his earth magic to send the carriage flying, opening its back door and revealing Lestia. Blinded by their anger, Martius and Joel start going off on the drivers with their magic powers. But Lysian, who's embracing and comforting Lestia, stops them before they kill them, telling them they need to use them for information on who's behind this. They already have an idea, given that both of them and their carriage are bearing the Imperial emblem. Thus, Martius and Joel get up close to the drivers, demanding to know who set them up for this and asking if the Imperial family had anything to do. Unfortunately, both of the men die suddenly in their arms right before one of them is about to open up about who sent them. They all return to the Verchester mansion now, Dora looking extremely worried about Lestia and throwing deadly glares at the brothers who'd put her in danger. She puts some healing cream on Lestia's cheek, as she'd cut it when cutting her gag off, and Martius promptly kneels beside Lestia, blaming himself for what happened. Lestia stops him from hurting his head against the sofa anymore and makes a joke that lightens up the mood. But then Dora throws everyone out of the room, telling them she has to check if Lestia is hurt anywhere else. Once outside, Joel asks Martius for a word. Joel's scolding Martius for having put Lestia in danger, telling him he didn't take her safety into account when going to that casino. At first, Martius tries defending himself, but after realizing that, unlike him, Lestia is only a little girl with no magical abilities, he realizes that leaving her alone in a strange place was not responsible at all, as she's the easiest target for anyone with a grudge against the Verchester family. So he admits his wrongdoings and apologizes. They start thinking about what they should do to keep Lestia safe from now on, and Haylock informs the three brothers that usually noble families have escorts when going out of the mansion, knights specially trained to guard them. They think this is a great idea, and as Lysian usually trains his swordsmanship with the Verchester knights, they decide to have him be the one to pick Lestia's escort. In order to do so, Lysian has gathered all of the Verchester knights onto the training courtyard, where they are all speculating who'll be the one to take on the honor of becoming the young lady's guard. Lysian appears at once and informs them that he'll be picking 3 of them based on their fighting and guarding skills and their loyalty, commanding them to start dueling against one another. In the meantime, Lestia receives an array of different cream sodas for her to try while in bed. Dora tells us that they were sent by Martius, who's trying to make up for her for not trying hers in the casino as she got kidnapped, and is trying to make up for it. In the Imperial Palace, a messenger informs the Crown Prince that their plan to kidnap Lestia failed. Honestly, it's no surprise he's the one behind this. Erichin is furious. Unable to control his anger, he's swinging his sword about, threatening to kill the guy who told him they'd failed in capturing Lestia. He demands to know why they haven't caught her yet, and the guy tells him that she hasn't left the Verchester mansion since their first attempt, and the security there is too tight for them to get in. Erichin clearly wants to have her badly, as he's about to kill the poor guy who's now begging for his life on his knees, but then stops, thinking of a better plan to kidnap Lestia. He orders the guy to use Lestia's filthy uncle to make her come out so they can take her. In the uncle's house, the guy, named Nari, is questioning that bag of dirt about Lestia, who's more than happy to tell him everything, and then he asks something different of him. In the Verchester mansion, Dora is tending to Lestia's wound and then prepares her breakfast. It looks like Lestia misses her brothers, as she hasn't seen them since the incident 2 days ago. She wants to ask them to have dinner with her, as eating together as a family isn't common amongst them, but she fears she'll just inconvenience them. Additionally, she's to meet with Lysian for her lessons later that day, so she plans to ask him then. Lestia is waiting for Lysian in the study when Lysian walks in, followed by 3 knights. She immediately recognizes the leader, Franker, and greets him warmly. Lysian then informs her that they're to be her knights from now on, who will stay by her side and protect her. All 3 of them start making their oath of allegiance to her, kneeling and asking her to accept them. Even though she hesitates at first, she ends up accepting them. The other 2 introduce themselves as Elliot and Yuel. Lysian and Lestia are walking around the study, trying to pick a book for her to read. However, Lestia is really uncomfortable by having the knights following her around, particularly because she fears she'll make a mistake in front of them and they'll think badly of her or the Verchester name. Poor sweetie. She's really been traumatized by that scumbag of an uncle. Noticing this, Lysian orders the knights to leave and only come when necessary. Lysian is then brainstorming who might have been responsible for the attempted kidnapping of Lestia, following the clue that the drivers died out of nowhere by the use of someone else's magic, as if wanting to silence them. He thinks of all the houses who have wizards, but none of them have the magical ability that matches the type of spell used to kill the drivers. Thus, all arrows are still pointing at the Imperial family, as they have monopolized the use of magic from ancient books, and are the only ones able to exert it. There used to be an independent research group of magicians who called themselves the Heirs of Truth, but they were exterminated by the Imperial family 200 years ago when they rose to power. Lestia interrupts his thoughts by asking him something about the book she's reading, and noticing how fast she's picking up on everything, Lysian starts thinking about getting her a good tutor that might be able to teach her more than he can. Lestia then asks Lysian for permission to read the magic book, surprising him a bit, but he agrees to let her read it anyway, reminding her not to read it aloud as she might activate the spells. Then, Lestia shyly asks him if he can have dinner with her, and he obviously accepts. Right about then, Haylock comes into the study to announce that there's a visitor for Lestia, and you guessed it, it's none other than her filthy uncle. Lestia starts quivering right after hearing her uncle is there, and with an ice-cold look, Lysian tells Haylock to send him away. Nonetheless, Haylock tells him that he won't budge, as he says there's a memento that was left to Lestia by her late mother that he must give her personally. Lestia seems a bit curious, but still very uncomfortable, so Lysian insists they take him away. Regardless, Lestia then tells Lysian she wants to meet him in person, as she wants to tell him directly to never come see her again. Thus, Lestia is accompanied by Lysian and her knights to go meet her uncle in a separate room. He turns to meet them, smiling like a maniac, and starts approaching Lestia as if he were her best friend. She's physically uncomfortable, remembering all the abuse she suffered by his hands while trembling and taking a step back from him. He tries taking a lock of her hair, but Lysian sharply stops him, looking at him with a deadly glare. Now collected, Lestia thanks Lysian for protecting her and tells him she's okay, calming him down. Firmly, Lestia then faces her uncle and tells him not to come see her again, telling him she knows he's lying about the memento as he would have already sold it if it was true. He tries pushing the box onto her, but Lestia won't take it, which in turn angers him, causing him to raise his voice at her. The knights point their swords at him and start dragging him away, when he opens up the box, releasing a purple magical smoke. Lysian throws Lestia away from the magic smoke, giving her to Franker and urging him to take her with him and run away from there as the smoke completely engulfs him. Whatever the smoke is, it causes Lysian's magical stone to shatter, making his magical abilities run wild and engulfing him in a blazing fire. Lestia is extremely distressed, not wanting to leave her brother behind, but Franker takes her away from there and makes everyone in the mansion evacuate as Lysian's flames start devouring the building. Once outside, Lestia tells the staff that they need to give Lysian another magic stone ASAP, as his broke, and they are all well aware of the dire consequences that may have, as it is said the former Duke died because of being engulfed by his own magic as well. Haylock appears to have an extra ring, but unfortunately, they don't know how they can safely deliver it to Lysian, as the whole wing of the mansion is starting to become engulfed in flames, and none of the magical brothers are there. Lestia then has an idea on how she can get magic. She thinks of using a spell from one of the books in the study to give the ring to Lysian, so she storms off into the study. However, just as she's about to grab the magic book she needs, Elliot grabs her from behind. Luckily, Elliot's not there to try to stop Lestia, but rather to help her, picking her up so she can reach the book she needs. Once outside, Lestia asks Haylock to give her the magic ring so she can take it to Lysian, but he refuses to do so, telling her it's too dangerous for her in there. She insists, telling him she has to save Lysian, but he's adamant, and even the knights start holding her back and telling her that if she gets injured going there, all of Lysian's efforts to protect her would have been in vain. She's fierce, though, resenting the knights for having sworn their allegiance to her, but not supporting her now, and telling Haylock she'll prove to them she can get Lysian safely. Thus, Lestia starts reading a spell from the book, surrounding herself in magic and gaining everyone's shock. Haylock clearly recognizes the magic she's using does not align with the other Verchester's magic, but he smiles, thinking that she truly completes them. Therefore, he gives her the ring and she promptly starts running into the burning mansion in search for Lysion. Inside, Lysion is agonizing on the floor, completely exhausted now. He never thought this would be the way he'd die, and only wishes to be able to see Lestia once more before going. To his luck, he hears Lestia's voice calling for him as she appears around the corner, running towards him with a protective magic shield around her. Lysion, however, thinks that it's just a hallucination and smiles, thankful to see her figure again, but ultimately giving in to his exhaustion when a chandelier breaks off from the ceiling right above him. Lestia runs towards Lysion to protect him from the falling chandelier, and luckily, her magic shield is enough for the both of them. Lysion wakes up and is shocked to see Lestia was not a fragment of his imagination, but is actually there, asking her how she got in and scorning the knights for having let her put herself in danger like this. However, Lestia is firm, reminding him that he told her she could do whatever she wanted and she'd always choose to help Lysion, no matter the danger. Defeated, Lysion is helped out of the mansion by Lestia. Just then, it starts to rain, but Lysion notices it's no ordinary rain, and they are met by Gerard, the older brother, who only coldly greets Lestia. Once everyone's outside and the fire's out, Gerard asks Haylock to tell him about the whole situation. After hearing everything, he asks about Lestia's uncle's whereabouts, but it seems that in the chaos of the fire, he ran away. Lestia feels awful, thinking all of this is her fault because of her uncle. Gerard then approaches her with a quite intimidating manner, telling her he's not merciful towards those who try to hurt his family, but just this once, he'll make an exception. Therefore, he asks Lestia what she wants him to do about her uncle. Surprisingly, Lestia replies that he should be punished for what he's done. Gerard sends out Lestia's knights to go capture her uncle, who's running in the woods of the Verchester's estate, trying to get as far away from there as possible. The imbecile thinks he's actually got away with it, remembering all the money Erichin's guy had promised him for opening the box near Lestia. Apparently, the purple smoke is a magical augmentation spell, so that probably explains why it broke Lysion's stone. Unfortunately for the scoundrel, the knights catch up to him and take him for questioning to the Verchester mansion. There, Lysion and Gerard are sitting while Lestia questions her uncle, who's kneeling on the floor. She asks him what the box contained, but he just ignores her and drags himself in front of the brothers, begging for their mercy and telling them not to trust Lestia. Obviously, Lysion jumps out to defend Lestia, but Gerard stops him, implying that this is Lestia's battle to fight. So Lestia continues her interrogation tactics, threatening her uncle with torture by the hands of the knights if he doesn't tell them the truth. Franker grabs the uncle by his collar, hitting him around while demanding to know what was inside the box. At first, he continues lying, but being the scared insect he is, finally gives in. However, as soon as he opens his mouth to spill the beans, he dies the same way the drivers of that carriage had died. Lysion hurries to cover Lestia's eyes so she's not traumatized by his horrible death. But I mean, it's kind of too late for that now. After that morbid scene, Gerard gets up and approaches Lestia, placing his hand on her shoulder while welcoming her to the Verchester family. I don't know why, but I kind of found that timing hilarious. Excuse me. They all then go stay at another Verchester mansion outside the capital, as the other one has to be repaired, and Joel and Martius finally appear. They first see Lysion, and Martius kinda implies that he blames Lysion for the partial destruction of the other mansion. Gerard then appears, defending Lysion by questioning Martius about having taken Lestia to a casino. Martius is annoyed at this, fighting Gerard by telling him Lestia also deserves fun, and also reprimanding Gerard for having had Lestia question and use knights to torture her own uncle, telling him he'll turn her into a monster. Gerard stands by his actions, and Martius storms off angered. Nonetheless, Joel also expresses his dissatisfaction towards Gerard's actions, but Gerard is firm. Later, the brothers, except for Martius, meet to discuss possible suspects for the constant attacks towards Lestia. Apparently, they already know the spell used to kill her uncle, and the drivers belong to the imperial family, and added that the carriage had birds belonging to the crown prince. Joel and Lysion seem pretty convinced he's behind this. Notwithstanding, Gerard seems more cautious than them, telling them it's only speculation. Meanwhile, Martius is heading towards Lestia's room, wanting to see how she's doing, but stalling at her door. He's intercepted by Lysion, who asks him why he's not going in there. He tells him that he feels he's a bad older brother to Lestia, but after some words of encouragement from Lysion, he finally goes in to see her. Lysion and Martius find Lestia hugging her teddy on her bed, with a very conflicted look on her face. As soon as he sees this, Martius goes over to her bed and hugs her tightly, wanting to comfort her. Lestia expresses how she feels it's her fault the house burnt down and all, as it all happened because of her uncle. Martius assures her she has no blame in it, but she still feels awful. Not only because of the fire, but also because of her uncle turning into dust like he did. She did want to make him pay, but she never intended for that to happen to him. It all seems to have been in an effort for her to finally feel like a true Verchester, but she's not happy with the outcome at all. Martius keeps consoling her, and after noticing the scar she has on her face from when she cut off the gag her kidnappers had tied on her mouth, he feels a pang of guilt and starts apologizing to her profusely. In the end, it's Lestia who's comforting Martius, hugging him back and telling him he's a great brother to her, being the first one to go comfort her and hug her since the incident. Martius is finally won over by Lestia, touched by her care for him and her warmth. Now, Martius is determined to work harder to protect Lestia. Right then, Dora comes in with a cart full of food ready to eat. Lestia is surprised to see it all already prepared for them, and obviously, it was Lysian's doing, who ordered the staff to prepare it as soon as Martius entered the room. Lestia doesn't seem to have that much of an appetite, but she can't refuse Martius's charm when he asks her to have dinner with them. As the three of them sit down, Joel also appears and they end up having dinner all together, fulfilling Lestia's wish. However, Lestia asks if Gerard would like to join them. Gently, they tell her that the table is for 4, so he wouldn't fit, clearly trying to imply that he won't show up without letting her down too much. Gotta love how they all care for her. It has been decided that Lestia will be moved to their territory up in the northwest, away from Erichen's clasps. She's a bit nervous about it, as it's the first time she's ever been out of the capital. But luckily, her brothers are there to look after her. Martius and Lysian will go up with her, and as Joel is on vacation now, he will also accompany her for now. Lestia then asks Martius if Gerard will be going with them to the family territory, but he doesn't seem to know. Lysian pops up and tells him Gerard will be going. Joel also appears, suggesting to Lestia they go for a morning walk. They all get super excited, wanting to show her the pond and inviting her for breakfast there. Thus, they head off for their walk. As they are exiting the mansion, Lestia comes across Gerard. She's immediately nervous, shaking and trying her best to courtfully greet him. She doesn't even address him by his name, bowing and calling him Duke. However, Gerard doesn't even meet her gaze. He only walks past her, ordering Halok to get an etiquette tutor for her. Lestia is devastated, thinking Gerard only sees her flaws, and Martius is even more annoyed at him. He tells her not to worry, as Gerard's a closed-off person, which in turn seems to tick something off in him, making him turn around to face them. Before he can say anything, Joel asks him where he's heading so early in the morning, given that he was supposed to go to the family estate with them. Apparently, the Crown Prince has invited him to have breakfast together, and Gerard wants to go because, even though it's only speculation that he's behind those attacks towards Lestia, he wants to issue a warning. It seems that Erichen's plan with the purple smoke was to find out if Lestia had any magical abilities or not. If she did, then the Verchesters would be forced to ask the Imperial family for a magical stone for her. As we know, his plan went sideways. Gerard arrives at the Imperial Palace and the Crown Prince is waiting for him in a gazebo. Gerard first annoys him by calling him Sir, and then by brushing off the incident with their mansion burning down, saying it's just a building. Seems like the Crown Prince is trying his hardest to press Gerard's buttons, but it's not working for now. However, as soon as Gerard sits down on the table, he notices the cage Erichen has prepared for Lestia. Upon seeing this, Erichen adds that it was meant for a parrot, but there was a road accident that caused it not to be delivered. He adds, nonetheless, that it won't be long until he captures it and locks it up. Obviously, Gerard knows he's referring to no parrot, but rather to Lestia. This causes him to become enraged, wilting the flowers near him with his magic. Erichen is shocked to see this, demanding Gerard explains himself. However, he plays it off cool, upsetting the prince even more when saying that the Verchesters feel responsible for the incident with the parrot, so they'll gift him a parrot and a new garden. Gerard then gets up and looms over Erichen, who's looking at him with a terrified look on his face. Gerard yanks off a necklace and places it before Erichen, telling him he can't seem to control his magic today, while making Erichen drown on the inside. As he walks away, Gerard stops his magic. Lestia is in the carriage with her brothers while heading up to their estate. She's fascinated by all the new scenery while having a great time with her brothers. Lestia notices Lysian staring at her, and startled, he tells her that their mansion is on a cliff overlooking the sea, so she can admire the sea better from there. Martius is all excited as well, telling her that in the summer, he'll take her to play at the beach. However, Joel and Lysian tell him they'll go with them to watch over him as they don't trust him with her at all. Of course, this is all said in a very playful manner. Mardius protests, telling Lestia that she's the only one who's on his side, and she just laughs. They've arrived at a dock, and it seems they have to get on a boat to get all the way to their mansion. Mardius takes her by the hand and drags her out of the carriage, unable to contain his emotion at showing her the boats. Joel then tells Lestia to guess which boat they're going to be boarding, and of course, it's the biggest one. She's a bit frightened at first, as it's her first time seeing the ocean and being on a boat. But then she smiles widely, excited to be experiencing all these new things. Mardius asks her if she feels free on the boat, and she smiles, agreeing. She then notices Joel and Lysian talking to Halok on the boat. Lysian wearing his cape. Lestia wonders why he always wears it while going out, thinking it's a shame that he covers his beautiful amber eyes all the time. Lysian then turns around and they make eye contact, making her turn red like a tomato. Mardius notices this and takes her in for a hug, jealous to see her get like that from Lysian's sight. Then they see Gerard's carriage arriving at the dock as well. Lestia tells Mardius she has to go greet the Duke, but he just holds her back with a strained smile, telling her she doesn't have to force herself to greet him again. It's clear he's not on good terms with Gerard. However, Gerard approaches them, greeting Lestia himself, but calling her an annoying thing. I honestly think it's his awkward way of showing affection, but of course, it's not nice of him, and Lestia interpreted it as if she had done something wrong herself. Mardius starts defending her, telling Gerard not to say anything if he's just looking to make Lestia feel bad. They then start arguing, and Lestia asks Mardius to stop defending her, not wanting to see them fighting. Upon noticing this situation, Lysian picks Lestia up and takes her away from there. She asks him to put her down, as she thinks she has to go back to apologize to the Duke, as she thinks she did something to anger him. Lysian reassures her that Gerard's not angry at all, as it would be visible in the water all around them, if not, as their emotions often show through their magical abilities. Lysian then brings her to her chambers, laying her on her bed and telling her that they have a half-day-long voyage to their mansion. He also adds jokingly that she should tell him if anyone annoys her, so he can blast them with his fire. Obviously, Lestia can't tell it's a joke, so she gets really worried, making Lysian laugh. Lysian then thanks her for having saved him back then by taking the ring to him, but tells her with a stern look to never do anything so dangerous for him again, as there's no reason to risk her own life for him. This clearly angers Lestia, who tells him that if anything like that happened to him again, she'd go rescue him without even thinking about it. He then calls her stubborn, but she gets angrier, telling him it's only natural for her to want to save him as he's important to her. He asks her if that's true, and she says it's right, as they're both Verchesters, so they must protect one another. This seems to tick something off in Lysian, telling her that she shouldn't put herself in those situations for him anymore, but adding that she can for her other brothers. Lastly, before going away, he tells her not to put a ring on a man's finger so carelessly in the future. Okay? Outside, Mardius is angry at himself for having gotten angry at Gerard again, but in front of Lestia. He fears she'll become scared of him being angry at her. He's so dramatic, it's sort of endearing. Joel then asks Gerard why he called Lestia annoying, and he says it's because she keeps calling him Duke, even when in private. Joel stifles a laugh, finally realizing why he's so annoyed. He asks him if he'd like to be called older brother, but he just tells him that he doesn't want her to be calling him Duke until the etiquette teacher comes. Joel tells him this isn't the best way to approach Lestia, as he ought to be friendly to her first so she can open up to him. Joel also notes that Gerard seems to be far harsher on Lestia than on Lysian regarding politeness and proper sibling etiquette. Back in the prince's palace, he's taking his anger out on a subordinate, who's begging for his life on the floor. A butler comes between them, excusing the boy and telling Erichin he didn't know the subject. Luckily for the butler, the Emperor is looking for Erichin, so he stops his hand mid-swing, collecting himself. The Emperor seems to be bedridden, and Erichin kneels beside him so as to greet him. The Emperor tells him he knows that he had breakfast with Gerard that morning, telling him he'd instructed him to get close to Gerard to be able to tame him. However, he knows his palace was left a mess after Gerard's visit. Erichin tries to excuse himself, saying he intentionally asked Gerard to use his magic, but the Emperor is having none of that. He places his hand so that Erichin approaches him, and then slaps him hard across the face. He then scolds Erichin for trying to lie to him, and with his tail between his legs, Erichin apologizes. The Emperor then goes on to talk about the late Crown Princess, Roxanne, who died 10 years ago. She was favored by both the Emperor and the Empress, and would have become the heir of the throne if she hadn't died. Naturally, being the only child left, Erichin was titled Crown Prince after her death, but the Emperor was never satisfied with him. As he's leaving the Emperor's room, Erichin orders his butler to make Lestia's cage larger, now determined to capture her. The Verchesters have finally arrived at the Duke's mansion. Martius doesn't seem to like it at all, and in the boat, when he went to Lestia's room to apologize for having gotten angry, he talked bad of the mansion, calling it boring. However, once there, Lestia is captivated by it, saying it looks straight out of a fairy tale. Martius is teasing Lestia about the mansion being haunted, pointing at some armor that's in the hallway, saying that once, when he was younger, he heard it move. Lestia is terrified, believing every word he says until Joel scolds Martius for teasing her like that. Martius just laughs, saying she looks so cute. Joel then warns Lestia about being careful while walking around the castle, as it's so big she might easily get lost. Haylock then appears, asking them if they want their dinner to be served in their rooms as usual. Martius tells him to prepare it in the dining room so that he can have dinner with Lestia, and Joel joins in as well. Lysian seems far colder than before, though, not even meeting her gaze and asking Haylock to prepare his dinner in his bedroom. As they walk around the mansion, they come across a magic lamp and a portrait of the boy's mother with young Gerard, Joel, and Martius. Lestia asks about the lady in the picture, and Joel tells her it's their mother who passed away a long time ago. Martius then asks Lestia to tell Joel and him apart from the picture, and she guesses correctly based on their eye colors. Then, with a sad face, she says how she wishes to have bright eyes like her brothers. But Martius just explains that the colors are because they show the magician's magic. Then, Joel compliments her silver eyes, telling her they are like trays that can carry all the magic as she's an interpreter. Lestia is able to feel her brother's magical powers, while remembering that the Verchester's coat of arms has 4 gems with the colors of the Verchester's magical attributes as well. Thus, she still feels bad for her gray eyes, but Martius consoles her, telling her her eyes are beautiful and squeezing her cheeks to make her laugh. Then, he suggests they redraw their family portrait now that Lestia has arrived, and Joel agrees it's a good idea. They continue talking about how they also want to fill up the mansion's walls with portraits of her, making her cutely uncomfortable. As they head to dinner, Lestia notices how in the portrait with their mother, Lysian is missing, as well as the former Duke. As they enter the dining hall, they notice Gerard sitting on the head of the table. Joel marvels at this, reminiscing how he hasn't had a meal with his brothers since they were children, and noticing how strong of an influence on their family Lestia is. Lestia is wondering about Lysian, but Haylock informs her that he will have his dinner in his room. Moreover, Lestia is a bit nervous about dining with Gerard, but she feels more confident because she's practiced a lot. They begin eating, and Gerard comments how he's surprised her dining etiquette is not so bad, to which she proudly responds that Haylock taught her. However, he adds that it's not enough. Martius jumps out to defend Lestia, telling Gerard to be more considerate of her and her efforts rather than always criticizing her. Surprisingly, Lestia stops Martius and defends Gerard's comment, saying that it was meant to encourage her to adjust better to the Verchester name. She says she knows she's still lacking, but she wants to try her hardest to be someone who deserves the name and the loyalty of the 3 knights who swore their allegiance to her. Joel and Martius seem surprised at her words, and Gerard just smiles at her, telling her he'll get her a tutor to help her out. She thanks him, calling him Duke once again, but he corrects her, asking to be called brother. She blushes hard, and Gerard asks her directly if she thinks she's not his sister, and she doesn't answer. Joel then reminds Gerard that he never told her the story about her parents, and Gerard agrees it would be best for her to know it so her doubts are gone. Gerard tells Lestia she's the daughter of their father and that her mother was a courtesan. Not knowing what that is, she asks Gerard, who plainly says that the high-end prostitute. Gosh, subtlety clearly isn't his strong suit. Martius jumps out, telling him they are words too strong for an 11-year-old girl, but Gerard says it's best for her to know the whole truth. After seeing Lestia, Martius calms down and Gerard continues. Her mother died shortly after giving birth to her, and as Lestia showed no magical abilities, the former Duke gave her to her uncle after paying a sum of money for child support. Gerard then stands, telling Lestia he thinks his father was wrong in abandoning her. Noticing she has a lot of questions, Gerard tells her to go ahead and ask anything she wants. Lestia is completely honest then, showing she's concerned about not being a Verchester because she has no magical attributes, and her mother was a prostitute, so she's doubtful she has the blood of the previous Duke. Gerard then approaches her and pokes her head, saying she has complex thoughts, and telling her he'll show her she's a Verchester in a way more credible than words, so she should just wait. He then leaves, leaving a really confused Lestia behind. Martius seems to be very embarrassed, and Joel explains that Gerard will probably call a professor at their academy, Katrina Lockbest, who's a wizard that possesses eyes that can see truth. Martius is embarrassed because anytime he did something wrong in the academy, she was able to see through his lies right away. Days pass, and Lestia has become very busy with all the tutoring Gerard got for her. In the morning, she studies, then in the afternoon, she has manners tutoring, and at night, swordsmanship and martial arts classes. She seems to be loving it, though, and is super excited to be learning so much new stuff. Martius complains, telling her they can't play anymore because Gerard has her studying all day long. But she tells him she's finding it all to be very fun. Joel comes in, jokingly telling Lestia not to play with Martius like that. He brings sweets Lestia can munch on while studying, telling her to try her best. Martius complains, telling him he's trying to win her over with sweets. Joel then notices a very difficult book on Lestia's table and asks her if she's reading that already. It seems that's a book Lycian was reading while teaching Lestia, and she's put it as a goal to be able to read it. Joel smiles, telling Lestia that she can always ask him questions if she needs help. She gets super excited and tells him they should study together, and Joel accepts as he has to prepare things in advance for the next semester. Martius feels left out, but Lestia just tells him to study with them as well, as it would be fun, and he could also study ahead for the semester. Joel is stifling a laugh as he tells Lestia Martius dropped out a year ago, making Lestia show an obvious face of disappointment. Martius asks if she thinks he's pathetic, and she doesn't deny so, asking him why he dropped out. He tells her he wanted to enjoy life, but he will go back, which gets Lestia excited, and she insists they study together then. Finally, Martius agrees to study with her, obviously only wanting to spend time with her, making Joel laugh out loud. Haylock then informs the Duke that Martius is studying with Joel and Lestia in the library, and he says he'll rejoin the academy, and they share a look of disbelief. Anyhow, Gerard suggests it's time they check on Martius's health. In the meantime, Lycian is colder than ever, not talking to Lestia and turning her away when she went to ask him for help in her studies. Lestia gets the idea to write a letter to Lycian to show him how much her writing has improved and to gain his attention, and she'll ask Dora to deliver it to him. However, the reply she got from him was Dora telling her Lycian wants her to know he's too busy, which obviously disappoints her. She notices how after their conversation in the sailboat, Lycian seems to be avoiding her, and the etiquette tutor told her it's wrong to visit someone without their consent. She then gets another idea, and she asks one of her knights if Lycian is going to swordsmanship training in the mornings as usual, thinking maybe she can meet him by chance. The knight tells her he is, but he's going during early dawn. Thus, next morning, Lestia wakes up before dawn to go look for Lycian in the training court. It's really cold, and she's very frightened as she's walking around the dark hallways, remembering the ghost story Martius had told her. She's getting more and more anxious as she feels steps coming towards her, and she falls down in fear when a hand touches her shoulder. Luckily, it's Lycian. He asks her what she's doing out so early, asking her if she came looking for him, but she lies to his face in an obvious manner, telling him she wanted to go for a walk. He knows she's lying, but he just tells her to go back to her room by following one of his magic butterflies. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!